I'm going to lower this down. I'm a little short. So at this time, I'd like to ask all the panelists if you could join me up here on the stage. Yeah, there's a little name tags that you Haku, Haku, welcome. My name's Marianne Carbone. I am Chumash lineage, and I am the mayor of the city of Sand City. I'd like to welcome you and thank you for attending the MMIP press conference. And with us at this time, I would like to welcome up my cousin, Andrew McDonald, and he is going to lead us in a land acknowledgement.
Well, Saleki Itsu, good afternoon. Nishmap Andrew McDonald. My name is Andrew McDonald. I am of Estlin and Chumash descent. I'd very much like to thank my cousin Marianne and my sister Ismana for making events like these happen. They do it seemingly single-handedly, and I have such respect and gratitude for them. I'd really like to thank everybody for being here today. I know, these subjects are heart-heavy, but it takes a lot of courage to be here. And I can't thank you enough for choosing to be here on this day. And thank you very much. So with that, I'd like to sing a song gifted to me by my cousin, Stephen Arevalo. He gave me a song singing about owl. And owl in many cultures is kind of seen as an omen of death, but for our tribe, the Estlin tribe, owl is kind of the night eagle, the deliverer into the night, the sort of Anubis of our culture, but also a healer. They're the protector of that night spiritual realm. So it was sung as a lullaby and also a sort of a healing song. So I'd like to share that today. So thank you for your time. And by the way, we used clapper sticks here. We didn't really use rattles or flutes or anything. That wasn't us. So this is the instrument I'm playing today, just for your information. Hatakununu, 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 hatakununu. Hatakununu, 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 ho, ho. Thank you, Canyon. That's my cousin. Well, just thank you all very much for your time. Attorney General, thank you very much for your time. I can't thank you enough. So with that, I'd like to pass it back to Marianne.
Okay. With that, I'd like to let you all know that this event took a lot of energy to pull this together, and it could not have been made possible without the generous support of our platinum sponsor, Federated Indians of Grant and Rancheria in Sonoma County. And representing the tribe and serving as today's moderator is the Vice Chair of the Tribal Council, Patricia Meraz. She has worked for Grayton in various capacities for 12 years and has served on tribal council for 4 years. So at this time, we are very honored that you can join us today. Patricia.
Thank you, Mayor Carbone. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to stand before you today for such a vital and significant cause. As you know, the missing and murdered Indigenous persons crisis is not just a problem statistic. It represents countless personal stories of heartbreak and loss in tribal communities across our nation. Each missing person is not just a number, but a loved one, someone's child, parent, sibling, or relative with a cherished place in their community. Our tribe, recognizing the cultural and emotional magnitude of this crisis, proudly supported this landmark event, the first MMIP training conference, specifically addressing the MMIP issue. This initiative begins a promising journey toward rectifying decades of oversight and creating pathways for just, equitable outcomes. Community involvement is key. We've witnessed our communities come together, highlighting the stories and struggles of MMIP and calling for the nation to respond with the urgency and respect these issues demand. Our collective voice, amplified through events like today's, is crucial in shifting from awareness to action. Tomorrow's training is a groundbreaking step forward. It's a hopeful sign that justice is not only sought, but achievable through education, empathy, and effective collaboration. It's the beginning of a new chapter where law enforcement officials partner with communities to understand the deep-rooted cultural nuances, ensuring these cases receive the attention and dedication they deserve. I invite you all to view this training as a catalyst for change, a collective responsibility that we must all shoulder. Let us use this knowledge and insights gained here to initiate real, tangible progress. Together we stand united, empowered to change this narrative. Let us ensure no more voices go unheard and no more lives go unaccounted for. Thank you. Okay. Before I introduce our first speaker, I'd like to remind everyone to mute or turn off your cell phones. And thank you for doing that. Today we are honored to be joined by 3 distinguished speakers who will discuss the impact of the MMIP crisis from their unique professional perspectives. We request that you hold all inquiries directed to them until Mayor Carbone opens the floor for questions. I'm honored to introduce our first speaker, a true champion of social justice and a fierce protector of public safety, Attorney General for the state of California, the Honorable Rob Bonta.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Rob Bonta, California Attorney General. Grateful for the opportunity to be with all of you today. And I just want to say thank you for being here, for coming together, for joining to talk about an issue that has demanded action for far too long, the missing and murdered Indigenous people crisis. As we gather during Native American Heritage Month, this event takes on even deeper meaning, because this month isn't just about celebration, it's about truth. It's about honoring strength, honoring leadership, and survival of tribal nations. And it's about confronting the injustices, past and present, that Native people continue to face in this state. I want to begin by recognizing the Supporting Indigenous Communities Group. Thank you for your efforts and leadership to organize this critical gathering and the ongoing work that you do every day. The MMIP crisis isn't just a statistic, although there are very tragic statistics. It's a lived trauma. It's the loss of relatives whose names should still be here with us. It's families living every day in uncertainty and heartbreak, without closure, without healing. It's tribal nations who have sounded the alarm for decades. And the truth is, California must continue to do better. We must continue to acknowledge the violence, the erasure, the historical harms, and the ongoing barriers that tribal communities still face when seeking answers, when seeking justice, when seeking safety. As Attorney General, I've made this a priority, not only to listen, but to push forward meaningful structural change, to take action. At California DOJ, we're moving the needle, and we're doing it with tribal leaders leading the way. We led a bipartisan coalition defending the Indian Child Welfare Act, ICWA, in Bracken versus Holland, protecting Native children and strengthening state tribal collaboration. We've launched efforts to support public safety on tribal lands, including researching barriers to reporting and identifying missing and murdered Native Americans. And we issued information bulletins to ensure law enforcement knows how to appropriately respond to trespassing on Indian lands and to ensure tribal court protection orders are enforced. 2 areas of concern raised directly by tribal nations to us. I supported legislation that shifts power closer to tribal communities, including AB 3099, which expands training, coordination, and resources to strengthen response in Indian country, as well as AB 134, which removes barriers and improves tribal public safety partnerships, and AB 44, which provides tribal law enforcement and tribal courts access to critical criminal justice information so that they're not blocked by state systems. We've also held our Missing in California Indian Country events across regions built with tribal nations to meet each community's specific needs, and so much more. Today is about continuing to center Indigenous experiences. Today is about hearing directly from tribal leaders about what's working and about what's not, and what else we can do. I also want to acknowledge this event marks another important step forward. The MMIP law enforcement training is the first post-certified MMIP training in California. So we're making history today, and that's worth celebrating. And I just want to say a little something more about that. That's a milestone because it means we're institutionalizing this work. But again, training doesn't alone end this crisis. We must continue to evaluate where we're falling short. We must continue to invest in tribal-led solutions, and we must continue to ensure the families most impacted are heard and listened to and believed. This is how change happens, not through one bill or one meeting or one conference, but through sustained commitment, relentless advocacy, and shared responsibility. The history of this state is intrinsically intertwined with the history of Native peoples, people who've been here since time immemorial. Tribal communities form the foundation of our state's rich cultural tapestry and have contributed to our society in immeasurable ways. To this day, more American Indians and Alaska Natives call California home than anywhere else in the nation. That's a point of pride. That's an honor. But for too long, Native peoples have been overlooked or overpromised to. I don't want to do either. When I became Attorney General, I made a pledge I knew I could keep: to listen, learn, and treat tribal communities with respect, to be an advocate and an ally, and to stand up for the rights and dignities of all people in the state and address the injustices of the past. Today is one step forward on that path, but there's a long road ahead. I know we'll travel it together. Thank you.
Thank you again, Attorney General Bonta. I'm pleased to introduce another distinguished legal and community leader who has dedicated herself to justice, victim advocacy, and community safety. District Attorney for the County of Monterey, Janine Paccioni.
Thank you for being today and for weathering the storm. The rain was really quite something, which we obviously need here in Monterey County, but the timing could have been maybe dialed in a little bit differently. We're here gathering today to discuss one of the most significant public safety and human rights issues of our time, and we're talking about the crisis of the missing and murdered Indigenous people. We're here to honor the lives lost, to acknowledge the pain carried by families and communities, and to recommit ourselves to justice, dignity, and healing. In Monterey County, we are a home rich in diverse Indigenous presence, both Native American tribal members and Indigenous families from Mexico who speak language such as Mixteco and Trique. These communities contribute deeply to our local agriculture, our culture, our economy, and yet many face linguistic and cultural barriers that can make them particularly vulnerable and to crime and exploitation. We also recognize that Indigenous people are disproportionately impacted and affected by violence, by trafficking and exploitation, and too often remain unseen by those in the system that are meant to protect them. The District Attorney's Office is committed to changing that. We are working with local law enforcement, service providers, and community partners to ensure that culturally informed investigations and prosecutions of crimes against Indigenous people are appropriate. We are participating in education and training where we believe that these are key factors so that officers and prosecutors and community advocates can understand barriers for Indigenous victims and respond with compassion and effectiveness. Our office continues to prioritize the fight against human trafficking in all of its forms. We've worked to educate the public on recognizing the signs of both labor and sex trafficking, and we remain determined to protect vulnerable individuals, especially those who face those linguistic, cultural, and legal obstacles. We have launched community education campaigns to help residents recognize the signs of trafficking and know how to report it. Our commitment is to ensure that the crimes are investigated aggressively and that survivors receive the care and support that they deserve. Recognizing and responding crimes against Indigenous people means that we have to understand the realities, that language access is an issue, that there are cultural differences in jurisdictional complexity and historic mistrust of law enforcement. It requires more than just prosecution. It requires a partnership, which we are creating today and moving forward. We're strengthening these partnerships with tribal and Indigenous community leaders and law enforcement agencies to ensure that Indigenous victims receive equal access to justice. We're directly engaging with the community through outreach events like the one today and tomorrow, the training tomorrow, because education is the first step toward prevention. A vital part of this commitment is the Multicultural Community Council. This was created by me back in 2021, and it was built to establish trust and transparency and collaboration with Monterey County's diverse constituents. The council brings together community leaders from every walk of life. They're educators, they're faith representatives, and advocates. They represent the NAACP and other involved parties, and they help us bridge the communication gap between what we know as prosecutors and what we don't know. And these people in this council help advise me on cultural impacts of which I may not be familiar with. And that allows them to feel heard in a system where they traditionally have not felt heard. Its mission is very simple. It's about open communication and inclusive participation with the goal of building transparency and trust and mutual understanding between our office and the people we serve. For this conference, starting tomorrow, one of my assistant district attorneys, Matt Leroux, who's here today, will discuss a case of Courtney Turney. She was a Comanche woman who was murdered in 2017 in the city of Seaside. Her story reminds us every day about what's at stake and our duty to learn and improve to prevent similar tragedies. We will also have an experienced sex crimes prosecutor giving a presentation on human trafficking and what steps the community can take to combat it in our county. Together, through partnerships like these that are presented in this conference, we can build a safer and more just Monterey County for all. Thank you.
Thank you again to District Attorney Paccioni. And now, I feel very privileged to welcome our final guest speaker. He's known for his remarkable dedication to protecting the values and communities of the Central Coast and defending the rights of vulnerable populations. Representing California District 17, Senator John Laird.
Thank you very much. And I just thought I would take the privilege of the fact that there are a few local elected officials here, which shows the broad base of this. And so I want to acknowledge the sheriff, Tina Nieto, who is here, the mayor of Delray Oaks, Scott Donaldson, County Supervisor Kate Daniels, and Seaside City Council member Alexis Garcia Arazola. And if I missed anybody, I was just eyeballing it. I apologize, but I wanted to demonstrate that there's good local support for these efforts here today. It's interesting, and I am sorry that a death in the family kept Assembly member and Chairman James Ramos from being with us today. He has been chair of the Native American Caucus in the legislature, and he has taken the lead on countless pieces of legislation. I have floor managed some of the headbangers on the Senate floor, but that's because he has taken the lead and he has really made a fundamental difference. The feather alert system and other things that play right into this issue. But what's happened, if you just back up globally, is that the Native Americans were driven off their land, their rights, and everything. And it's been in the last few decades that we have tried to come back in recognition. I know when I was Secretary of Resources, I did a negotiation in the marine protected areas to allow coastal Native American tribes historic takes for subsistence and ceremonial purposes. There have been places where land has been returned. We are trying to change the narrative of history that exists in some ways that marginalizes Native Americans. But a key part is what we're here about today in the criminal justice system. And what has happened is that completely separate from individual groups, we have been working to strengthen the rights and the protections for people in cases of domestic violence, sex trafficking, and related issues. I mean, I was elected to the Santa Cruz City Council before about half the people in this room were born. And when I was elected in 1981, we had a ballot measure behind us that established the first domestic violence protocols for police officers so that they didn't leave cases unaddressed when they were out there. They didn't just make some guy walk around the block and then come back and be right back at the same situation. And we have been doing that with sex trafficking, whether it's post-training or being able to self-identify in emergency rooms or other places. There's even been a law or two with the name Bonta on it going through the legislature. And we have established this, but the fact is that 2% of the population nationally is Native American or Native Alaskan, but 40% of the victims of sex trafficking are Native American or Native Alaskan. And so what it means is with all the progress we have made in protecting people, trying to ferret this out, we now have to take it the next step and analyze are there special targeted outreach or special targeted protections we can take that deal with the disproportionate impact to groups, and in this case, particularly Native Americans? And so what we are here today for is to call that out, to say that while all of us that are here and have been speaking support fundamental rights and fundamental protections for victims and fundamental ways that we get at sex trafficking the way it hasn't been attacked before, part of that in the next step is, well, how come it disproportionately affects certain groups, and what on a public policy basis are we going to do to make sure that there is special outreach, protections, knowledge, trainings. And so that's why it's exciting there's a conference, exciting where there's strong local support, but you don't know how significant it is to have the people up here in local law enforcement, in state law enforcement, a mayor with personal experience that from her heart can tell you and motivate you what we need to do. So thanks for this effort, and we will join together and we will work hard to take it the next step. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Laird. And now I want to invite Mayor Carbone up to do some closing remarks.
Thank you. And I would like to recognize, I seen a couple elected officials who walked in, so I would like to recognize Seaside City Council Member Alex Miller, is over here, and also Sand City Councilwoman Elizabeth Sofer. So welcome. And with that, good afternoon. As chair of Supporting Indigenous Communities Group, who has organized and hosted the MMIP press conference, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to Attorney General Rob Bonta, to Senator John Laird, and to District Attorney Janine Peccioni for their participation in the incredibly important event happening here. Knowing full well of the demands of their busy schedules, I am deeply honored that you made time to join us to share your perspectives and your commitment to addressing the missing and murdered Indigenous peoples crisis. Your presence and your insightful remarks on the MMIP crisis facing us, not only in California, but right here in Monterey County, are invaluable. They have greatly contributed to our awareness and knowledge of the MMIP issues that we are facing right now and into the future. It is your leadership and dedication to public service, especially in more challenging areas like MMIP. You are truly amazing and inspiring. And so as the mayor of Sand City and the chair of Supporting Indigenous Communities Group, I look forward to continuing this important dialogue and exploring potential future collaborations. I'd like to thank you once again for your significant contribution to the MMIP press conference, which is the first of a series of events that includes an upcoming MMIP welcome reception later in this room at 5 o'clock. And it will go from 5 till 7. And then tomorrow at the MMIP training conference, also here in the hotel ballroom just down the hall. So with that, thank you very much. And I believe I can open this up to media, press, questions and answers. And so with that, or potential interviews. So is there anyone in the room with questions? And if I could get a mic to you, a microphone is coming, if you could state your name and
Hi,
comment.
thank you all. I'm Katie Brown with KAZU. This is for DA Passioni. You said that Monterey is a hotspot for this kind of crime. Do you have any statistics to share or anything in the last year that we can let our local listeners and people know about?
So what my take on it is that we have a very rich population of Indigenous people that live here, and therefore there's a disproportionate number. So no, I don't have any numbers off the top of my head, but we know that it is traditionally an underreported population, particularly in the Salinas Valley with Greenfield and Gonzales and Soledad. There's a large Indigenous set of individuals that live there, and their distrust of law enforcement has made prosecution very difficult because of their reluctance to report crimes.
Okay, so not even like in the last year, there's been an X amount of Native crimes against people, or nothing that you have today?
Well, we generally don't collect data on race as a matter of course, because our job is to prosecute crime, and it doesn't make a difference who the person is. But I don't have that kind of data for you today.
Thank you.
And next.
Hi, Julie Reynolds, Voices of Monterey Bay, and The Imprint, a national publication on child welfare. Who will be attending this training? What groups is strictly law enforcement? And is this the first of its type in the nation? Forgive me if that has been stated, but I wasn't sure. Or first of its type in California?
I could answer.
And whoever wants to answer.
I could answer. So yes, this is the first training in California, and I'm not sure about in the nation. I'm not sure about that. And I brought this training a couple years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago. I was speaking with a law enforcement officer, and this is after the feather alert came into effect, and he had asked what the feather alert was. And that's kind of like Amber Alert or Silver Alert for us older gals. So he didn't know, so I thought the light bulb went on, and I thought, well, gosh, maybe we need some training for law enforcement. And so that set the wheels or the gears rolling in with me and in my heart with what I carry to help to speak, for those who no longer have a voice. I made a commitment to do this here, and so took me a couple years to do it, and got that done. And this is the first of its kind.
And one follow-up, thank you. Mayor, is this strictly for Monterey County law enforcement, statewide, or what kinds of groups of law enforcement bodies will be attending the training?
So this is open to any law enforcement, whoever would like to attend. This is a post-certified law enforcement, so officers who attend this will be able to get credits with their training. And here, me being an Indigenous mayor of 34 years now, total, I offer this course free of charge. So it's open to anyone. We all know that we have budgets in different jurisdictions, and that money, it is mandatory, the training for officers, but in the native way, it's to be offered free here. And that it is also being recorded, and it could be, folks can also listen to those recordings. And then lastly, it's not only, this training is not only just offered up to law enforcement, it's healthcare workers. There's many different people, tribal people, behavior health, many people who will be attending this conference.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And anyone else?
Hi, Michelle Maddox with Magdalena Magazine. I just have a question about the training. Is it
something that is mandatory for police officers? Is this something that could become mandatory, as it seems that everyone should know about this in law enforcement? Thank you.
That one, I don't know who would.
At this time, I believe it's not mandatory, but I also believe that the goal is to make it mandatory. So it's an ongoing progression and continuum. Important to have the training to begin with, and very important that it be post-certified, and the next step is to make it mandatory.
Thank you. And Kate?
I can just speak loudly. Sorry, I know I'm not a journalist, but once a journalist, always a journalist. So I'm just gonna pipe in and ask a question, if I can. I'm curious. Although we're talking about law enforcement and the conference that's at hand, I'm curious if there are some policy, in particular local policies that have been implemented around in the state of California or in other locations where you could give us local elected officials, local legislators, an example of what we could do better in terms of bringing the type of awareness you're talking about, and perhaps giving this issue the dedication that it truly deserves. What can we be doing, perhaps using examples from other locations? What can we be doing better here in Monterey County to support this initiative and this work, which clearly needs to be done? Thank you.
I'll take a crack at that. There's been a number of different efforts at the state level that have been advanced to confront the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous people. Assemblymember James Ramos has really just been the lead on almost all of them. From the Feather Alert, which was mentioned when there is notice of a missing Native American, and the response there too, the awareness of how to use it, the speed at which to react to support a potential victim and to pursue a criminal case. There has been funding that has been provided to do additional training on criminal law enforcement jurisdiction. There's, not to get too far in the weeds, but there's a law called Public Law 280, and it requires a shared jurisdiction and some exclusive jurisdiction when it comes to criminal law enforcement. And we have 3 pilots across the nation, or across the state rather, for tribal police to be doing criminal law enforcement on tribal land. That's an important step. That might be expanded. That might be expanded maybe to somewhere in Monterey on an appropriate tribal land. So something to keep an eye on there. There have been areas of or sources of criminal justice information that have been out of reach of Indigenous and tribal communities, like the CLETS system, which a law was provided to make it available as an important tool to tackle crime for the tribal communities. So those are all advancements. I'll also say that we've had our Missing in California Indian Country gatherings where we bring a lot of resources together in one place. My office brings our forensic team and our victim services team to hear from families who've been impacted by this crisis, who've lost someone, who haven't had closure, who are still seeking justice, who can get information or share additional information with us, who can get resources and support as they continue down the healing journey. That's something that, if it hasn't happened here yet or needs to happen here again, could occur here. So there's sort of a menu of options of different things that are in development. And then today's a day to maybe not just expand in the scope and impact of those solutions that are already in progress, but to talk about new ones. What else can we do? What more can we do? That question is always on my mind, and I know we'll get some ideas today.
Can I add something? I think just adding to that answer, which was very comprehensive and very good, maybe a clear version is we are always trying to have government agencies catch up with where the people are. And a lot of times it's hard to understand unless somebody tells a personal story or you have an inkling of how it affects them. I mean, I remember when I was mayor, and it's probably 40 years ago, we almost had this tragic incident because a police officer said stop and was being really threatening and didn't realize the person was deaf. And a horrible thing almost happened, and it led to an amazing training series on how to make sure that was recognized in a way that a safety thing like that didn't happen again. And I suspect, I mean, I have the added benefit in my life of being married to somebody who's of Native American heritage, who offers me opinions unsolicited most of the time. And I really learn of how something is taken or how something is understood in a way that I might not have. So I think the real question is, and the Attorney General hit it, and I know the District Attorney works on it, is how to get people in front of the different agencies. In your case, the county, we have law enforcement here, but how do you get somebody in front of mental health? How do you get somebody so the different pieces of this are understood by the practitioners on the ground in a way that they might have not registered what was an important thing, or what was a cultural thing, or what was something that you could see and recognize that if you weren't acculturated, you didn't. And so that's the important thing, is just making sure you get people into the trainings and into the different departments to explain what it is like so people get it.
Thank you. And I'd like to recognize Carrie Herthel, and this will be our last question.
This is not a question, although it sort of is a question. I'm Carrie Herthel, so I'm Vice Chairwoman for the Esalen Tribe of Monterey County. I also want to introduce myself as a consultant for the state of California for the welfare system. As a survivor leader, I work with the California justice system. I'm an expert in my field on human trafficking in California and been recognized since 2010. And I'm hoping that the roundtable, I'll be able to bring up some of the resources that I believe Monterey County has not understood. I've also been very involved in Sovereign Body Institute and the research of California. All these issues are very important, and also to understand the intersections of murdered and missing and human trafficking. As well as I just came from the commission over in Salinas for first 5 California State Commission, and the intersections of our foster care system, our children. There are many intersections that also need to be addressed, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to give my years of research to all of you during the roundtable. I've prepared an extensive evaluation for Monterey County through the years that is recognized by several of the recognized tribes. So with that said, I wanted to introduce myself to also let all the agencies in Monterey County know that, you know, I was one of the executive directors for the Coalition to End Human Trafficking and very versed in the subjects that you are at hand. So I make myself available. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, this here will wrap up today's press conference. And please feel free to join us back here in this room later today at 5 o'clock. Thank you.